It was a warm summer day on August 15, 1769, when a boy named Napoleon Bonaparte was born on the island of Corsica. At first glance, there was nothing unusual about him. No one could have imagined that this small child would one day become one of the most powerful and famous men in history. Corsica was a beautiful island in the Mediterranean Sea, filled with mountains, forests, and rugged coastlines. Its people were proud, independent, and deeply connected to their traditions. But Corsica was also a land of conflict. For generations, the island had struggled against foreign control. Only 1 year before Napoleon's birth, France had taken ownership of Corsica. Many local people were unhappy about this change and dreamed of independence. Napoleon grew up hearing stories about resistance, courage, and national pride. These stories would leave a deep mark on him. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, was a lawyer and a member of the local nobility. His mother, Letizia Ramolino, was known for her strength, discipline, and determination. The Bonaparte family was respected, but they were far from wealthy. Money was often a problem. Napoleon was one of 8 children who survived to adulthood. Life in a large family taught him important lessons about competition, ambition, and perseverance. From an early age, Napoleon seemed different from many other children. He was serious, he was quiet, and he spent much of his time thinking. While many boys enjoyed games and adventures, Napoleon loved books. He was fascinated by stories of great leaders from the past. He read about Alexander the Great. He read about Julius Caesar. He admired powerful men who changed the course of history through intelligence, courage, and determination. Even as a child, he dreamed of achieving something extraordinary. Napoleon was especially interested in military history. He enjoyed studying battles, maps, and strategies. He wanted to understand how small armies could defeat larger enemies. He wanted to know why some leaders became legends while others were forgotten. These questions filled his mind long before he ever wore a military uniform. His mother played an important role in shaping his character. Letizia was strict and demanded discipline from her children. She taught them the importance of hard work and self-control. Years later, Napoleon would say that much of his success came from the lessons he learned from his mother. As Napoleon grew older, his family realized that education might offer him opportunities beyond Corsica. His father worked hard to secure a place for him in schools on mainland France. It was a difficult decision. Leaving Corsica meant leaving behind everything familiar, his home, his friends, his culture. But it also meant a chance for a better future. In 1779, when Napoleon was only 9 years old, he left Corsica and traveled to France. The journey changed his life forever. At first, France felt like a different world. The language was different, the customs were different, the people were different. Napoleon spoke French with a strong Corsican accent. Many of his classmates noticed immediately. Some laughed at him, others treated him like an outsider. For a young boy far from home, these experiences were painful. He often felt lonely. He missed Corsica deeply. But instead of giving up, Napoleon responded in a way that would define much of his life. He worked harder. While other students spent their free time socializing, Napoleon buried himself in books. He studied history, he studied geography, he studied mathematics. Mathematics quickly became one of his favorite subjects. His teachers noticed his talent. Numbers made sense to him, logic made sense to him, and these skills would later become extremely useful in military planning. The loneliness he experienced also shaped his personality. He became independent. He learned to rely on himself. He developed an inner confidence that would remain with him throughout his life. Although he had few close friends, he gained something else. He gained focus, he gained discipline, and he gained an intense desire to prove himself. Many years later, people would look at Napoleon and see an emperor, a conqueror, and a military genius. But those qualities did not appear overnight. They were forged during these difficult years. The lonely boy from Corsica was learning valuable lessons about resilience, determination, and ambition. He was discovering that obstacles could become opportunities. Every insult made him stronger. Every challenge made him more determined. Every setback pushed him forward. Napoleon did not yet know what his future would hold. He could not imagine the battles he would fight. He could not imagine the kingdoms he would conquer. He could not imagine the empire he would build. For now, he was simply a young student trying to find his place in a foreign land, but history was already beginning to move around him. The world was changing. France was changing, and the boy from Corsica was preparing for a destiny greater than anyone could possibly imagine. When Napoleon arrived in France as a young boy, he quickly realized that life would not be easy. Everything felt unfamiliar. The language sounded different. The customs were different. Even the food seemed strange compared to what he knew in Corsica. For the first time in his life, Napoleon felt completely alone. At school, many students immediately noticed that he was different. He spoke French with a strong Corsican accent. His manners were unusual. His family was not as wealthy as many of the noble families around him. Some students laughed at him. Others ignored him. Few openly mocked him. For a young boy far from home, these experiences were painful. Napoleon often felt like an outsider. He missed Corsica deeply. He missed the mountains, the familiar faces, and the culture he had grown up with. Sometimes he felt angry, sometimes he felt lonely. But these difficult emotions did not break him. Instead, they slowly transformed him. While other students spent their free time playing games and attending social events, Napoleon chose a different path. He buried himself in books. Books became his refuge. They became his friends when he had few real friends. He spent countless hours reading about history, politics, philosophy, and warfare. The stories of great leaders fascinated him. He admired Alexander the Great, who built a vast empire before the age of 30. He admired Julius Caesar, who transformed Rome and became one of history's most famous military commanders. As Napoleon read their stories, he began imagining his own future. Could an ordinary boy become extraordinary? Could someone born far from power rise to greatness? The question never left his mind. His teachers soon noticed something unusual about him. Although he was quiet and often kept to himself, he possessed remarkable intelligence. He learned quickly. He remembered details that other students forgot. Most importantly, he excelled in mathematics. Numbers seemed natural to him. Complex calculations that confused others often appeared simple in his mind. At first, this talent might not have seemed important, but mathematics was one of the most valuable skills for military officers. Artillery required precision. Strategy required calculation. Distance, timing, and positioning could determine the outcome of battles. Without realizing it, Napoleon was developing the skills that would later help him command entire armies. Life at military school was demanding. Students followed strict schedules. Discipline was expected at all times. Mistakes were punished. Excuses were not accepted. Many students struggled. With these rules, Napoleon adapted. The discipline that his mother had taught him in Corsica proved useful. He learned to control his emotions. He learned patience. He learned how to work hard even when he did not feel motivated. These lessons would stay with him for the rest of his life. As the years passed, Napoleon's confidence began to grow. He was still not popular. He was still different, but he no longer cared as much about the opinions of others. He had discovered something more important. He had discovered purpose. While many students dreamed of comfortable lives, Napoleon dreamed of achievement. He wanted to accomplish something significant. He wanted to leave his mark on history. The more he studied, the more ambitious he became. His notebooks filled with observations, ideas, and reflections. He carefully analyzed military campaigns from the past. He examined the strengths and weaknesses of famous commanders. He wanted to understand why some leaders succeeded while others failed. To Napoleon, every historical battle was a lesson. Every victory contained a secret. Every defeat offered a warning. By the time he reached his teenage years, Napoleon was no longer simply a lonely boy from Corsica. He was becoming a disciplined young man with extraordinary ambition. The hardships he faced in France had shaped him. The loneliness had made him stronger. The ridicule had made him more determined. The challenges had taught him resilience. Without knowing it, The people who mocked him were helping create the future emperor. History often remembers Napoleon as a conqueror, a general and a ruler. But before he became any of those things, he was a young student struggling to fit into a world that did not fully accept him. And perhaps that struggle became one of his greatest strengths. Because while others sought acceptance, Napoleon sought greatness, and greatness was already beginning to call his name. By the late 1780s, France was facing a crisis unlike anything it had experienced before. The country was deeply in debt. Food prices were rising. Many ordinary people struggled to survive. At the same time, the monarchy continued to spend enormous amounts of money while millions suffered. Anger was spreading across the nation. People wanted change, and change was coming. In 1789, the French Revolution began. It would become one of the most important events in world history. The revolution challenged centuries of tradition. The power of kings, nobles and privileged elites was suddenly under attack. Across France, people demanded liberty, equality, and opportunity. For some, the revolution brought hope. For others, it brought fear. For Napoleon Bonaparte, it brought opportunity. At this time, Napoleon was a young military officer trying to build his career. He had completed his education and joined the French army as an artillery officer. His position was respectable, but his future was uncertain. The army was still dominated by wealthy aristocrats. Advancement was often based on family connections rather than talent. Young Corsican officer without powerful allies faced many obstacles, but the revolution changed everything. As old institutions began collapsing, new opportunities appeared. Many aristocratic officers left France or abandoned their positions. Suddenly, ambitious young men could rise much faster than before. Napoleon recognized this immediately. While others saw chaos, he saw possibility. He understood that history was opening a door, and he intended to walk through it. Like many people of his generation, Napoleon initially supported several revolutionary ideals. He believed talent should matter more than birth. He believed individuals should have opportunities to succeed through ability and hard work. These ideas appealed to him because he had personally experienced discrimination and exclusion. For years, he had been treated as an outsider. Now France was changing. The old barriers that had limited him were beginning to disappear. Yet the revolution was far from peaceful. Political conflicts became increasingly dangerous. Different groups fought for control. Violence spread through the country. The execution of King Louis XVI shocked Europe. Foreign nations feared the revolution would spread beyond France. Soon, France found itself surrounded by enemies. War erupted on multiple fronts. The young republic needed capable military leaders. Napoleon saw another opportunity. As an artillery officer, he possessed valuable skills. Artillery was becoming increasingly important in modern warfare. Cannons could decide battles, and Napoleon understood how to use them effectively. His intelligence, discipline, and technical knowledge began attracting attention. Unlike many officers, he studied constantly. He analyzed military campaigns. He learned from history. He examined both victories and defeats. He wanted to understand every aspect of warfare. While others relied on tradition, Napoleon relied on preparation. One of the most important moments of his early career came in 1793. The city of Toulon had fallen into the hands of forces opposed to the revolution. Even worse, British warships were supporting them. The situation was extremely serious. If Toulon remained in enemy hands, the revolutionary government could suffer a devastating defeat. Napoleon was assigned to help with the military operation. Although still young, he quickly demonstrated remarkable ability. He carefully studied the battlefield. He identified key positions. He developed a plan that focused on controlling strategic locations rather than attacking blindly. His ideas impressed senior commanders. When the attack began, Napoleon's artillery played a crucial role. The operation succeeded. The British were forced to withdraw. Toulon was recaptured. The victory brought Napoleon national attention. For the first time, important political leaders noticed his name. He was only 24 years old, yet he had already proven himself under difficult circumstances. Promotions soon followed. His career began moving forward rapidly, but Napoleon was not satisfied. Success only increased his ambition. The more he achieved, the more he wanted. He believed he was destined for greatness, and increasingly, others began to believe it as well. The revolution continued transforming France. Governments rose and fell. Political alliances changed constantly. Many people struggled simply to survive. Yet through all the uncertainty, Napoleon continued advancing. Every crisis seemed to create a new opportunity. Every challenge allowed him to demonstrate his abilities. He remained disciplined when others panicked. He remained focused when others became distracted. Most importantly, he remained ambitious. The young boy who once felt lonely in military school was becoming a confident officer with growing influence. France was changing rapidly. The old world was disappearing. New world was being born, and Napoleon Bonaparte was rising with it. The revolution had begun as a national upheaval, but for Napoleon, it had become something more. It had become the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Soon, even greater opportunities would appear, and before long, all of Europe would learn his name. The victory at Toulon changed Napoleon's life. For years, he had been just another young officer trying to prove himself. Now, people across France were beginning to notice him. His success had demonstrated something important. He was not simply intelligent. He was a leader, and in times of war, France desperately needed leaders. Following the victory, Napoleon received a promotion. At only 24 years old, he became a brigadier general. It was an extraordinary achievement. Many officers spent decades trying to reach such a rank. Napoleon had achieved it before turning 25. But success brought new challenges. France remained unstable. The revolution continued, creating political turmoil. Governments changed rapidly. Alliances formed and disappeared. The country was constantly on the edge of crisis. For ambitious men, these were dangerous times. One wrong political decision could destroy a career or even cost a person their life. Napoleon understood this reality very well. He learned to adapt. He focused on what he did best: military service, strategy, results. While politicians argued endlessly, Napoleon concentrated on proving his value through action. Yet even he could not completely avoid politics. In 1794, one of the revolution's most powerful leaders, Maximilien Robespierre, was overthrown and executed. The political landscape changed overnight. Many people connected to Robespierre suddenly became suspects. Napoleon briefly found himself under suspicion as well. For a moment, his future looked uncertain. Everything he had worked for seemed at risk, but fortune once again favored him. After a short period of difficulty, he was released. His career survived. The experience taught him an important lesson. Power could disappear as quickly as it appeared. He would never forget that. Meanwhile, France continued fighting wars across Europe. The young republic faced enemies on multiple fronts. Military victories were desperately needed. Napoleon spent countless hours studying maps, reading reports, and analyzing campaigns. His obsession with military strategy became stronger than ever. He believed that preparation was one of the greatest advantages a commander could possess. Many officers relied on tradition. Napoleon relied on knowledge. He studied the campaigns of Alexander the Great. He studied Julius Caesar. He examined the successes and failures of famous generals throughout history. Every battle became a lesson. Every mistake became a warning. Every victory revealed a principle. Slowly, Napoleon was creating his own philosophy of warfare. Speed, surprise, decisiveness. He believed that hesitation often led to defeat. A commander had to move quickly. A commander had to think faster than the enemy. A commander had to seize opportunities before they disappeared. These ideas would soon transform European warfare. In 1795, another crisis erupted in Paris. Political tensions were once again threatening the government. Armed groups opposed to the revolution prepared to challenge authorities. The situation was dangerous. Violence seemed inevitable. Government leaders needed someone capable of restoring order. They turned to Napoleon. Young general acted quickly, using artillery with remarkable efficiency. He helped suppress the uprising. The confrontation was brief but decisive. The government survived. Napoleon's reputation grew even further. Many influential people now viewed him as a reliable problem solver, man who could deliver results when others failed. Among those who noticed him was Paul Barras, one of the most powerful political figures in France. Barras became an important supporter. His influence opened new doors. Napoleon suddenly found himself moving within circles of power. He met politicians, military leaders, businessmen, members of high society. The lonely boy from Corsica had entered a very different world. Yet, he remained focused on his ambitions. He was not interested in simply becoming rich. He wanted something greater. He wanted glory. He wanted achievement. He wanted history to remember his name. Around this time, another important event occurred. Napoleon met a woman named Josephine de Beauharnais. She was elegant, intelligent, and well-connected. Their relationship would become one of the most famous romances in history. At first, Napoleon was deeply captivated by her. He wrote passionate letters. He thought about her constantly. Josephine would soon play an important role in his personal life. But before their story fully began, Napoleon's military career was about to reach a new level. France needed a commander for a struggling army in northern Italy. Most people viewed the position as difficult and undesirable. The army lacked supplies. The soldiers were tired. Victory seemed unlikely. Many experienced generals doubted success was possible. Napoleon saw something different. He saw opportunity once again. Where others saw problems, he saw possibilities. In 1796, he received command of the army of Italy. He was only 26 years old. Many officers were older. Many had more experience. Some doubted him immediately. How could such a young general lead an entire army? Napoleon intended to answer that question himself. The campaign ahead would change everything. It would make him famous across Europe. It would transform him from a promising officer into a national hero, and it would mark the beginning of one of the most extraordinary military careers in history. The young officer from Corsica was about to show the world what he could do. In 1796, Napoleon took command of the French army in Italy. It was his first major independent command, and for many people in France, it was also a surprise. He was young, he was inexperienced compared to other generals, and the army he received was in terrible condition. The soldiers were hungry, they were poorly equipped, morale was low. Many officers believed the campaign would fail before it even began. But Napoleon saw things differently. Where others saw weakness, he saw opportunity. He believed that speed and strategy could overcome numbers and resources. Before the campaign even started, he spoke to his soldiers. He did not promise comfort. He promised victory. He told them they would find glory, wealth, and honor in Italy. His words changed everything. For the first time in a long time, the army felt hope. Then Napoleon began his campaign. What followed surprised all of Europe. Instead of moving slowly like traditional armies, Napoleon moved fast, very fast. He separated enemy forces before they could unite. He attacked quickly and decisively. One victory followed another. At Montenotte, Millesimo, and Lodi, his army defeated stronger opponents. Each battle increased his reputation. Each victory made his soldiers more confident. Napoleon's strategy was simple but powerful. Never allow the enemy time to react. Never give them space to reorganize. Always keep pressure, always keep moving. Soon, enemy armies began to fear him. Not just his soldiers, but the man himself. Reports of his victories spread across Europe. Governments were shocked. How could a young general defeat experienced commanders so easily? Napoleon became a symbol of something new, a different kind of warfare. Fast, aggressive, unpredictable. As his victories continued, something else began to change. His soldiers began to see him not just as a commander, but as a leader who understood them. He shared their hardships. He inspired them with confidence, and he rewarded them with success. Napoleon, also understood the importance of recognition. He often praised his troops publicly. He made them feel part of something greater. This created a powerful bond between him and his army. The more they trusted him, the more they fought for him, and the more they fought, the more he won. By the end of the campaign, Napoleon had achieved what many thought impossible. He had defeated multiple armies, he had expanded French influence in Italy, and he had become one of the most famous generals in Europe. His name was no longer unknown. It was feared and respected. Back in France, newspapers celebrated him as a national hero. Politicians began to see him as more than just a general. He was becoming a figure of power, but Napoleon was not satisfied. Italy was only the beginning. He wanted more, much more. The young officer who once felt like an outsider in France was now one of the most important men in the country, and his ambition was only growing stronger. The Italian campaign had changed everything, but the greatest chapters of his life were still ahead. While Napoleon's military career was rising rapidly, another important story was unfolding in his personal life. It was a story of love, passion, disappointment, and heartbreak. In 1795, Napoleon met a woman named Josephine de Beauharnais. She was elegant, charming, and sophisticated. Unlike Napoleon, Josephine was already familiar with the social circles of Paris. She moved comfortably among politicians, military officers, and influential people. She was also older than Napoleon, and she had already experienced great hardship. Her husband had been executed during the French Revolution, leaving her a widow with 2 children. Despite their different backgrounds, Napoleon was immediately fascinated by her. He fell deeply in love. Friends noticed the change almost instantly. The serious young general suddenly became romantic. He wrote long letters filled with affection and admiration. Sometimes he wrote several letters in a single week. His words revealed a side of Napoleon that few people ever saw. Behind the ambitious soldier was a man capable of intense emotion. In 1796, shortly before leaving for the Italian campaign, Napoleon married Josephine. He believed he had found the perfect partner. Even while leading armies across Italy, he constantly thought about her, whenever possible. He wrote letters expressing his love and longing. Some of these letters still survive today. They show a passionate and vulnerable Napoleon, very different from the powerful ruler history remembers. Yet, their marriage was not always happy. Long periods of separation created difficulties. Napoleon spent months away on military campaigns. Josephine remained in Paris. Rumors began to circulate. People whispered about problems in their relationship. Some claimed Josephine was not always faithful. Whether every rumor was true remains uncertain. But there is little doubt that Napoleon was deeply hurt by many of the stories he heard. For a man who could remain calm on battlefields, emotional pain proved much harder to control. Their relationship became increasingly complicated. There were moments of affection, moments of reconciliation, moments of tension, and moments of disappointment. Yet, despite these difficulties, Josephine continued to play an important role in Napoleon's life. She helped him navigate the political world of Paris. She introduced him to influential people, and she often provided support during critical moments of his rise to power. As Napoleon's fame grew, so did the pressure on their marriage. There was another problem as well. The couple had no children together for years. Napoleon hoped for an heir. As his power increased, this issue became more important. An emperor needed someone to continue the dynasty. Without an heir, the future remained uncertain. Eventually, Napoleon faced a painful decision. In 1809, after many years together, he divorced Josephine. The separation was emotional for both of them. Even after the divorce, Napoleon continued to care about her, and Josephine remained one of the most important people he had ever loved. Their story did not end with a fairy tale ending, but it remained one of the most famous romances in history. For many people, it revealed something important about Napoleon. He was not only a soldier, not only a conqueror, not only a future emperor, he was also a human being with hopes, fears, and emotions. The relationship with Josephine showed both his strength and his vulnerability, and while armies would help shape his destiny, love would shape part of his heart. Meanwhile, beyond the borders of France, new opportunities awaited him. A new campaign was being planned, a campaign unlike anything he had attempted before. It would take him far from Europe, to a land of ancient pyramids, deserts and forgotten civilizations. Napoleon's next adventure was about to begin. In 1798, Napoleon Bonaparte turned his attention away from Europe. His victories in Italy had made him famous. His reputation was growing rapidly. Many people already viewed him as France's most brilliant military commander. But Napoleon wanted something greater. He dreamed of building a legacy that would rival the greatest figures in history. He admired Alexander the Great. He admired Julius Caesar. And now he wanted his own grand adventure. His eyes turned toward Egypt. At the time, Egypt was part of the Ottoman Empire. But Napoleon was interested in more than territory. He believed Egypt could help weaken Britain's influence around the world. Britain depended heavily on trade routes connecting Europe to Asia. By controlling Egypt, France might threaten those routes and challenge British power. The plan was ambitious, and like many of Napoleon's plans, it was risky. In May 1798, he departed France with a massive expedition. Thousands of soldiers joined him. But something unusual happened. Napoleon did not bring only soldiers. He also brought scientists, engineers, artists, mathematicians, and scholars. More than 100 intellectuals accompanied the expedition. This was something rarely seen in military history. Napoleon believed knowledge was almost as important as military power. He wanted to study Egypt. He wanted to understand its history, culture, and ancient wonders. When the French arrived, they quickly achieved several military victories. One of the most famous was the Battle of the Pyramids. Standing near some of the most ancient structures on Earth, Napoleon addressed his soldiers. According to legend, he told them, "Soldiers from the heights of these pyramids, 40 centuries look down upon you." The words became famous. The battle ended in a decisive French victory. For a moment, Napoleon appeared unstoppable once again, but success on land did not guarantee success at sea. Soon after, disaster struck. The British Navy, led by Admiral Horatio Nelson, attacked the French fleet at the Battle of the Nile. The result was catastrophic. Much of the French fleet was destroyed. Napoleon and his army suddenly found themselves isolated in Egypt. Communication with France became extremely difficult. Supplies became uncertain. The situation grew more dangerous. Yet even during these challenges, remarkable discoveries were being made. The scientists traveling with Napoleon began documenting Egypt's monuments, temples, and ancient artifacts. Their work helped introduce much of ancient Egyptian history to Europe. One discovery became especially important. In 1799, French soldiers uncovered a stone near the town of Rosetta. At first, it appeared ordinary, but historians would later recognize its incredible value. This artifact became known as the Rosetta Stone. The stone contained the same text written in multiple scripts. Years later, it would help scholars finally decipher ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Without this discovery, much of ancient Egypt's written history might have remained a mystery. Although Napoleon's military campaign faced growing difficulties, the scientific achievements were extraordinary. His expedition helped spark a new fascination with Egypt throughout Europe. Artists painted Egyptian scenes. Writers described ancient temples. Scholars studied the discoveries for generations. Napoleon himself continued dreaming of greatness. He imagined building an empire that stretched across continents. He imagined reshaping history. But events in France were moving quickly. Political instability was growing once again. The government was losing public confidence. Many leaders feared the nation was heading toward crisis. Napoleon saw another opportunity, and opportunity was something he rarely ignored. In 1799, he made a bold decision. Leaving much of his army behind, he secretly returned to France. Some critics would later question this choice. Others viewed it as a brilliant political move. What cannot be denied is that his timing was remarkable. The moment he returned, he found a nation desperate for strong leadership. France was tired of uncertainty, tired of weak governments, tired of endless political struggles, and Napoleon believed he had the answer. The Egyptian adventure had expanded his fame, it had strengthened his legend, and now for the first time, he was preparing to pursue something even greater than military glory. He was preparing to take control of France itself. When Napoleon returned from Egypt in 1799, France was exhausted. The revolution had promised liberty, equality, and opportunity. But years of political instability had left many people frustrated. Governments rose and fell, corruption spread, confidence in political leaders was disappearing. The country needed stability, the country needed direction, and Napoleon believed he could provide both. By this point, he was already one of the most famous men in France. His military victories had made him a national hero. People admired his confidence. They admired his leadership. Most importantly, they believed he could solve problems. Napoleon understood that public opinion was on his side. He also understood that opportunities do not last forever. If he wanted power, he needed to act quickly. In November 1799, he helped organize a political coup. The existing government was removed. A new system was created. Officially, France was still a republic, but in reality, Napoleon had become the most powerful man in the nation. He took the title of First Consul. At only 30 years old, he now controlled the future of France. Many people feared that he would become another dictator. Others believed he was exactly what the country needed. For Napoleon, power was not simply a reward. It was a tool he intended to use to reshape France. Over the next few years, he launched a series of reforms. He improved the education system. He reorganized government administration. He strengthened the economy. He worked to restore order after years of chaos. Many of these reforms proved remarkably successful. Even some of his critics admitted that France was becoming more stable. One of his most important achievements was the creation of the Napoleonic Code. This legal system established clear laws that applied equally to citizens. It influenced legal systems across Europe and many other parts of the world. Even today, traces of Napoleon's legal reforms can still be found in modern societies. Yet Napoleon's ambition continued. Growing, he did not want to be remembered as merely a political leader. He wanted greatness. He wanted permanence. He wanted a dynasty. In 1804, he made a decision that shocked Europe. He would become emperor. For centuries, French kings had ruled by hereditary right. The revolution had overthrown that system. Now, a man who had risen through talent and military success was preparing to place a crown upon his own head. The coronation ceremony took place in Paris. Dignitaries gathered from across Europe. The event was designed to demonstrate power, prestige, and legitimacy. One moment became legendary. As the ceremony unfolded, Napoleon reportedly took the crown himself and placed it upon his own head. Whether every detail happened exactly as later paintings suggested remains debated, but the symbolism was clear. Napoleon was declaring that his authority came from his achievements, not from ancient traditions. The young boy from Corsica had become Emperor of France. It was one of the most extraordinary rises in history. Many Europeans were stunned. Some admired him, others feared him. Kings and emperors across the continent watched carefully. They knew Napoleon's ambition had no limits. For Napoleon, however, becoming emperor was not the end of the journey. It was only the beginning. He dreamed of building a powerful empire. He dreamed of reshaping Europe. He dreamed of leaving a legacy that would survive for centuries. And soon, he would have the opportunity to pursue those dreams. Across Europe, rival nations were preparing for war. Coalitions were forming. Armies were gathering. The greatest military challenges of Napoleon's life were still ahead. But now he faced them as Emperor Napoleon I, and the world was about to witness the height of his power. By 1805, Napoleon had become the most powerful ruler in Europe. He was no longer simply the Emperor of France. His influence stretched across the continent. Kings feared him, generals studied him, and ordinary people spoke his name with a mixture of admiration and concern. Yet, Napoleon was not satisfied. He believed France still faced dangerous enemies. Several European nations had formed a coalition against him. Austria, Russia, and Britain hoped to stop his growing power. War was once again unavoidable. Napoleon welcomed the challenge. He believed his army was the finest in Europe, and he intended to prove it. The defining moment came in December 1805 near the town of Austerlitz. In present-day Czech Republic, Napoleon faced the combined armies of Austria and Russia. The battle would become one of the most famous military victories in history. Napoleon carefully studied the battlefield. He encouraged his enemies to believe that his position was weak. He allowed them to think they had the advantage. Confident of victory, the Allied forces advanced, but it was exactly what Napoleon wanted. As the battle unfolded, he launched a series of coordinated attacks. His troops moved with remarkable speed and discipline. The enemy lines began to collapse. By the end of the day, Napoleon had achieved a stunning victory. Military historians still study Austerlitz today. Many consider it his greatest masterpiece. The victory transformed Europe. Austria suffered a humiliating defeat. Russia was forced to retreat. Napoleon's reputation reached new heights. People began calling him a military genius. Some even believed he was unbeatable. Over the following years, French armies continued winning major victories. Napoleon reorganized territories across Europe. And old kingdoms disappeared. New states emerged. Governments were forced to adapt to a new reality. Wherever Napoleon's influence spread, change followed. His reforms often modernized administration, law, and education. Many people welcomed these improvements. Others resented French control. As his empire expanded, resistance also grew. Yet at the height of his power, Napoleon controlled or influenced much of continental Europe. No ruler, since the days of Charlemagne, had dominated so much territory. His family members were placed on various European thrones. His allies governed large regions. His enemies struggled to contain him. From Paris, Napoleon appeared unstoppable. His achievements seemed extraordinary. The poor boy from Corsica had become the most powerful man in Europe. He had defeated kings, he had defeated emperors, he had reshaped nations, and he had changed history. But success often creates new dangers. The more Napoleon won, the more confident he became, the more powerful he became, the more ambitious he became. Some advisors urged caution. Some warned that the empire was growing too large. Others feared that constant warfare would eventually create new enemies. Napoleon listened, but he rarely changed course. He believed his judgment was superior. After years of victory, that belief became stronger than ever. For the moment, however, few people dared question him. Europe stood in awe of his accomplishments. His armies dominated battlefields. His empire seemed secure. His future appeared limitless. Yet, history has a habit of humbling even the greatest leaders. Beyond the borders of his empire, new challenges were already forming, and one decision, made with confidence and determination, would eventually lead Napoleon toward disaster. The emperor stood at the peak of his power, but the climb downward was about to begin. In 1812, Napoleon made the most important decision of his military career. It would also become his greatest mistake. Relations between France and Russia had deteriorated. Political tensions were rising. Trust was disappearing. Napoleon believed he could solve the problem the same way he had solved so many others. With military force, he assembled the largest army Europe had ever seen. More than 600,000 soldiers joined the campaign. They came from across the empire. French troops marched alongside soldiers from many allied nations. The scale of the operation was astonishing. Napoleon expected a decisive victory. He believed one successful campaign would force Russia to negotiate. Instead, he was walking into a catastrophe. As the French army advanced, Russian forces retreated. They avoided large battles whenever possible. More importantly, they destroyed supplies as they withdrew. Villages were abandoned. Food was burned. Resources disappeared. This strategy became known as scorched earth. The deeper Napoleon advanced into Russia, the harder it became to supply his army, yet he continued moving forward. Finally, in September 1812, a major battle took place near Borodino. It was one of the bloodiest battles of the Napoleonic Wars. Tens of thousands died. Although Napoleon technically won, the victory came at an enormous cost. Soon afterward, he entered Moscow, but instead of finding triumph, he found disaster. Large sections of the city were burning. Supplies were scarce. The Russian government refused to surrender. Napoleon waited. Days passed, then weeks. No peace agreement arrived. Winter was approaching. The situation became increasingly dangerous. At last, Napoleon ordered a retreat. What followed became one of history's most tragic military disasters. The Russian winter showed no mercy. Temperatures plunged far below freezing. Food became impossible to find. Horses died. Soldiers collapsed from exhaustion. Disease spread rapidly. Thousands perished from cold, hunger, and exposure. The once mighty Grand Army began to disintegrate. Every mile of the retreat brought new suffering. Every day reduced the army further. By the time the survivors crossed back into friendly territory, only a fraction remained. The campaign that had begun with more than 600,000 men ended with devastating losses. Europe was shocked. For years, Napoleon had seemed invincible. Now he appeared vulnerable. His enemies sensed an opportunity. Across the continent, new coalitions formed. Nations that had once feared him now prepared to fight him. The emperor had suffered his greatest defeat, and the consequences would soon threaten everything he had built.
The disaster in Russia changed everything. For years, Napoleon had seemed unstoppable. Now, his enemies saw weakness. Across Europe, nations that had once feared him began forming new alliances. Austria joined the struggle. Prussia joined the struggle. Russia continued fighting. Britain provided support. Together, they hoped to accomplish what had once seemed impossible. They wanted to defeat Napoleon. In 1813, a massive coalition army confronted French forces at the Battle of Leipzig. The battle became known as the Battle of Nations. It was one of the largest battles ever fought in Europe before the 20th century. Napoleon fought with determination. But this time, numbers were against him. The coalition forces achieved victory. For the first time, Napoleon's empire began collapsing rapidly. Former allies abandoned him. Territories were lost. Confidence disappeared. The situation grew worse with each passing month. By 1814, enemy armies had entered France itself. Paris fell. Napoleon's dream of a vast European empire was crumbling. At last, he was forced to abdicate. The man who had once ruled much of Europe surrendered his throne. Many believed his story was over. The victorious powers exiled him to the island of Elba, located in the Mediterranean Sea. Compared to the vast empire he had controlled, Elba was tiny. It seemed impossible that Napoleon could ever return. Yet Napoleon was not a man who accepted defeat easily. Even in exile, he watched events closely. Meanwhile, France struggled under its new rulers. Many citizens became dissatisfied. Some missed the stability and leadership Napoleon had provided. Others remembered the glory of his victories. Napoleon sensed an opportunity. In February 1815, he escaped from Elba. The news spread across Europe like wildfire. Napoleon was returning. As he marched toward Paris, soldiers were sent to stop him. Something extraordinary happened. Instead of arresting him, many joined him. Old loyalty returned. Old admiration returned. The emperor was back. His return became known as the 100 Days. For a brief moment, it seemed history might repeat itself. But Europe's leaders had learned their lesson. They moved quickly. Another coalition formed, another army prepared for war. The final confrontation came on June 18, 1815, near the Belgian village of Waterloo. Battle would become one of the most famous in history. Napoleon faced the forces of the Duke of Wellington and the Prussian army under Field Marshal Blücher. The fighting was intense. Rain had turned the battlefield into mud. Communication was difficult. Timing became critical. Throughout the day, Napoleon launched attack after attack. French soldiers fought bravely. For a time, victory seemed possible. But as the battle continued, the situation changed. Prussian reinforcements arrived. The coalition forces, great stronger French attacks, began to fail. The tide had turned by evening. Napoleon's army was defeated. The battle was over. The empire was finished. Waterloo became more than a military defeat. It became a symbol of the moment when one of history's greatest military leaders finally reached the limits of his power. Napoleon returned to Paris. This time, there would be no miraculous comeback, no second chance, no return to power. He abdicated once again, and this time, Europe would make sure he could never return. The emperor who had once dominated a continent was about to begin the final chapter of his life. After Waterloo, Europe's leaders faced an important question. What should they do with Napoleon Bonaparte? They knew one thing for certain. They could not allow him to escape again. ELBA had taught them that lesson. This time, they chose a much more remote destination. Napoleon was sent to St. Helena, a small island in the South Atlantic Ocean. Thousands of miles from Europe, thousands of miles from power, thousands of miles from the world he had once ruled. The island was isolated and difficult to reach. Escapese impossible. For the first time in many years, Napoleon found himself without armies, without ministers, and without authority. His empire was gone. His battles were over. His destiny had changed forever. Life on St. Helena was quiet, sometimes painfully quiet. Napoleon spent much of his time reading, walking, and reflecting on his past. He spoke with companions who had followed him into exile. He discussed battles, he discussed politics, he discussed history, and, perhaps most importantly, he discussed how he wished to be remembered. Napoleon understood something that many leaders never realize. History is shaped not only by events, but also by stories. He wanted future generations to understand his achievements. He wanted them to remember his victories, his reforms, his ambitions, his vision. In many ways, he began shaping his own legend. As the years passed, his health declined. Various illnesses affected him. Doctors disagreed about the causes. Even today, historians continue debating the exact circumstances of his death. Some theories suggested stomach cancer. Others proposed different explanations. There were even rumors of poisoning. That mystery helped keep public interests alive long after his fall. On May 5, Napoleon Bonaparte died at the age of 51. The man who had once shaken Europe was gone, yet his story did not end with his death. In fact, it was only beginning. Almost immediately, debates emerged. Was Napoleon a hero or a tyrant? Was he a liberator or a conqueror? Different people reached different conclusions. His supporters praised his intelligence, leadership, and reforms. His critics pointed to the wars that caused immense suffering across Europe. Both sides had arguments, and both sides continue to debate his legacy today. What cannot be denied is his influence. Napoleon transformed France. He transformed Europe. His legal reforms shaped modern governments. His military innovations changed warfare. His ideas spread far beyond the borders of his empire. Even leaders who opposed him were forced to adapt because of his impact. Perhaps the most remarkable part of his story is where it began. He was not born a king. He was not born an emperor. He was not born into unlimited power. He was a boy from a small island called Corsica. A boy who felt like an outsider. A boy who loved books. A boy who dreamed of greatness. Through intelligence, determination, ambition, and relentless effort, he rose higher than almost anyone could have imagined. His journey inspired admiration. It inspired criticism. It inspired fascination. More than 200 years later, people still study his life. They still visit battlefields where he fought. They still debate his decisions. They still read his words. Few individuals leave such a lasting mark. History. Napoleon Bonaparte was one of them. His empire disappeared. His armies vanished. But his name endured. And it continues to endure today. The boy from Corsica became Emperor of France, and the legend of Napoleon lives on